I'm first and foremost a farmer. I cannot do what I'm doing without the farm. And when you think about restaurants, and that's one of the reasons I got the James Beard Award, is that the group realized that one of the things they were not recognizing was the people who provide the ingredients to make these chefs famous. Yeah. It's all connected. And so if I can change somebody's lens in terms of so that if their child says, I'm thinking about going to work for Nezinscot Farm, that's awesome. What are you going to do? Well, she's going to have me in the garden some. We're going to do some butchering, making cheese. I am an artist. I'm an artist in so many different fields, and I bring all of those to this farm. And by changing that lens, to change people's minds in terms of if that word farmer is such a word that, deters people or makes them feel like they're not going to amount to anything, then call yourself an artist, because that is what farming is. It's an art.
What is art?
Art is the ability to create something beautiful.
Yes, it's creation.
It's creation.
Yeah.
And so being able to step outside in your garden this time of year and come in with 8 bushels of different things and just being able to sit with people and say, look, what are we going to do?
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, chef owner of the Nezinscot Farm, Gloria Varney. Gloria, my lady, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I think I'm unstoppable today.
I am psyched to be here. This is a special interview for me because I've been coming to Maine for almost 40 years. I didn't know about Nezinscot Farm until about 7 years ago. Yeah. My family lives in the summers about 15 minutes away from here in Canton, Maine. And I've been able to see this evolution for the past 7 years of where you were 7 years ago, where you are today, and your continued literally growth. We're currently sitting in this room that is adjacent to the original building, right? And you have more construction going on behind us. So your growth has been so much fun to watch. Last year, you get James Beard American Classic. Is that the award you received?
Yep.
And honestly, I've spoken to people in all different spectrums of the industry, from pop-up to over 100-unit operator. And what you're doing, from being a farm all the way to a cafe, in my opinion, is just as hard, if not more hard, than scaling to 100 locations. So I cannot wait to dive into your story, to find out who you are, how you got to where you are today. But let's get that motivational, inspirational, ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
I think that my mantra would be that money is good for one thing, and that's to pay bills. But also, and more importantly, is that when you are looking to go out there and find that job, do it because it's something you're passionate about and not for the money. Yeah. Money will come.
Yep. Why is that so important?
Because it allows you to, really have things in perspective. It allows you to keep your ideals, what your focus is. Think about it. If you're focusing on I need this much money to have this or to be happy, you're just never going to be happy, because there's always, you want to get more and more and more. Right. And so what you're experiencing here, our farm, our cafe, is something I've grown through passion.
I love it. And I like to remind people, we go through the process of writing down our mission statement, writing down our core values, writing down our vision. And I think people think they're doing it for their team. Yeah. But I really think the most value in doing that is for you. So when you get tempted with an opportunity that might make you more money, but pulls you off the original direction, having that stuff written down, writing down why you do what you do and what matters to you, and cementing that, it serves as a filter for the rest of your career going forward. Is this what I said I am? Is this what I want to do? If it's going to pull you off what makes you happy, then don't do it, because it won't be worth it.
That's right.
I love it. Awesome way to get this thing started. So where does it make sense to start sharing your story?
Oh, probably back when I met Gregg and we came onto this property.
And Gregg is your husband.
Gregg is my husband.
Before you dive into that story
Yeah.
real quick, what is Nezinscot Farm today? Like, paint the big picture of like what it entails.
What it entails is an organic dairy. We were the first certified organic dairy in Maine back in '94. So that's, one leg of it. The other leg is a diversified farm store cafe where we feature things and products that are produced and grown on our farm through the cafe, but also available for purchasing as grocery items, like
I buy
meats.
a leg of lamb every year. I don't know if you remember me calling to reserve that leg of lamb. That was me.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, we have a creamery, Turner Center Creamery, where I make both goat and cow's milk cheeses, hards, like a dozen different kinds. I'm the baker, and so I'm producing all the breads and all the bakery items, the vessels for the cafe, as you can say, and I work closely with my cook to create those delicious meals. And so that's where we're at today. That's the first floor. The second floor is another 30 by 60 fiber studio that features products from our fiber animals, of about 150 head that, we make yarns, we make value-added products from them. So it's a lot of value added. It's a lot of creating products and then seeing how many different things that can be produced from that one entity to help the farm, stay viable.
What percentage of the goods that you're selling in your farm come from the property versus the goods you have to outsource from like a vendor?
90%.
90%.
Yep.
So I started this episode by saying what you're doing is more difficult to be successful at what you're doing, to pull goods from your property, from literal raw materials to goods, and to sell it from. I mean, are you on other properties? Do you wholesale?
There are a couple farm stands seasonally that we provide dairy and bread to.
Okay.
But right now it's pretty much here.
Yeah, in my mind, that what you're doing is so hard, not just because of how many moving parts there are from growing the product, right?
Mm-hmm.
From, baby to butcher,
Yep.
know, but then to like just all those moving parts, but to be profitable at it.
Right.
That's the thing that I think so many farms who want to do what you're currently doing, where they fall short, is to make it all work.
Yep.
So I want to get into that today.
Yep.
I hope we can unpackage that. But going back to 1987,
Yeah.
did you have any experience working in this kind of fashion before that?
I'm one of 10.
Wow.
And I grew up on what I would call is a sustainable farm. We grew all of our food and put up a lot of food. And I learned the art of butchering with my dad.
What kind of farm did you grow up on?
So vegetables, we grew our crops for our animals. It was a small dairy. My mom made 2 dairy products, cottage cheese and dairy butter, sold some milk.
I love your butter, by the way.
Thank you.
I always have a fresh pot of butter. Sorry, I had to say it.
And then we sold, excess vegetables at our farm stand. And my dad had a couple chicken houses.
Okay.
So
you grew up in this.
I grew up working around animals, around farms. Yes.
How close was your family farm from Nezinscot?
We are about 20 miles.
Okay.
Yep.
When did you? Do you mind me asking how old you were when you broke off and tried to do your own thing? When you started in 1987? I hate to date you.
Ready? 21.
21 years old. You
Yep.
broke off. You went off on your own. You started your own business.
Yeah. Well,
own farm.
So I moved here when I was 21 and finished college. Worked off the farm for a few years. So
You must have finished college young.
22.
Okay. So
Yep.
you started Nezinscot Farm when you're a year before you graduated.
Nope. So I moved here at 21. So I
Okay.
should say started Nezinscot Farm 23.
Okay.
Yep. And I started as I opened a yarn shop in our house.
Okay. Is this your house?
No, our house is attached. That's the other part of the construction you're seeing.
Okay. Got it. So it all started really with the yarn.
That's right.
So was that your original passion?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So I'm a fiber artist, and so I was working away from the farm for the first 2 years that we were married, and there was a yarn shop that I frequented, and they were closing, and I just took it as an opportunity because the next closest natural yarn shop was Portland. So I thought, why not?
Okay. So what was the original vision for Nezinscot Farm?
The original vision, honestly, was when I started with the yarn shop, it was a way to like fulfill my passion, right? And I started bringing in fiber animals, and the original vision was to, like the food, be able to create as much fiber and then do as many value-added products from that fiber through the yarn shop. And as that shop started increasing and people coming into my home and smelling bread baking, because I was making food for myself and
Gregg.
young family and Gregg coming on. And and they would start asking about that. So that really just got the vision going. The plan was, I wanted 5 years to figure out if an on-farm retail spot was for me.
Okay. But your first commodity was the actual animals for the wool.
Yeah.
That was the first thing
Yeah.
you started to farm.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of crazy that we think of food and goods like that as commodities?
Yeah.
When they're living
Yeah.
creatures? Like that's one thing that just like
Four-legged
recently
commodities.
just started rocking my world. Like how do we group that with like silver, gold, salt, like a living life?
Yeah.
It's just weird when you start looking in the meaning of words. But that was your first commodity,
Yeah.
was growing the sheep.
Yep.
And then people came in, started smelling the food, and you thought to yourself, maybe there's another opportunity to create another channel of revenue.
Right. So my background, I'll back up because my college background is community health education.
I was going to ask that.
Yep. And a secondary major in nutrition and exercise physiology.
Okay.
So
what is community health education?
Working with communities to look at healthy environments, healthy situations that families live in. A lot of the people in this degree ended up working for the State Department of, like social work, things like that.
What did you learn about what is healthy for a family?
Well, it was the reason I came back to the farm after working off the farm for 2 years, because what I was envisioning my role is I worked at an exercise fitness center, and one of my roles was to do one-on-one consults to help people get healthy.
Who needs a fitness center when you own a farm?
Exactly. And so it didn't take long for me to realize, sitting like you and I are, and talking to people like, okay, this is what you need to do. This is your exercise regime. This is your nutrition regime. But what I realized is that people weren't happy. And there's no matter how much I talk to them about, like, I need you to do this exercise. I need you to eat this, have this for a diet. If they're not happy, then it doesn't matter. And then I wasn't happy doing this because it's not how I felt was the best way to teach people how to be healthy.
So let me make sure I understand. They weren't happy sitting down, going over the plan with them. Why weren't they happy, I guess?
So they're coming to me already just unhappy about, not being in shape or being overweight. And I realized that if people were happy in their life, at home, at work, that they could you know, the exercise piece would naturally come to them. They would naturally want to eat better. And so time and time again, it's like repeating the same scenario to people about what to eat, how to exercise. In the meantime, I'm like, this isn't doing it for me. This is not how I want to promote a healthy lifestyle. And so I came back to the farm, and that's why I told Gregg, I said, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I said, but I'm happy here. And again, the money will come because I'm doing and it did, you know. And so people come here and they get to eat good food. I tell so many people in interviews, you know, when you come here, this is my classroom. This is where I want you to learn how to be healthy and be happy and to make those right choices. You don't need me to tell you. You can simply walk around our farm and know that something here, you know, you can take something from here, go home with it, whether it's even just watching us work or how we approach each other here with, you know, my workers and my family.
So how long into Nezinscot Farm did you have this revelation?
Like couple years.
So
2 or 3 years.
You were 23 when you started the yarn.
Yep.
You were teaching health and education, or health and fitness and wellness. A couple of years thereafter. So now you're in your mid to later 20s.
Yep.
You start having this new vision.
Yep.
Of a holistic approach.
Yep.
Of doing what, you know, like continue, like what was the new vision? Like along, like share.
So we
vision.
had our first child. I had my first child at 25, and it wasn't an option to put her in a daycare. You know, again, that was not how I wanted to raise my kids. And so they were part of, you know, the whole picture, the appeal, I guess you can say, because, you know, people coming to the farm saw family all kind of working together or being together. And
did you homeschool too?
No.
Okay.
No. Go back to your question, because
So the vision originally was to lead into this passion of working with fibers.
Yep.
Of growing commodities from the sheep to the spinner. I don't know what you would call it.
Yep.
And that was the original plan, and then it evolved. I think this is also important, that vision doesn't necessarily, like, your vision, your mission can change over time.
That's right.
And I think it's important for people to realize that, because I think they get kind of stuck on it.
Yep.
And it's okay, because you as a person will evolve, and like you grow as you continue your life. Like, you're constantly being fed with new perspectives and new ideas, and you're growing as an individual. So your vision can grow too. So what I'm trying to figure out, what is the new vision now that you have like this, you kind of have this aha moment of a more holistic approach to life, where not work-life balance, but just life, and make your life work.
Yep.
Like your work, your life's work.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to
say.
So I don't want to put words into your mouth.
Yeah. So right from the beginning, my vision has been and still is to change people's perspective on farming. You know, how do we get the next generation to be farmers, want to be farmers? And so when you talk about a lens, I want to change that lens for people. So I'll share a story. So a few years back, there were a couple situations that happened. One of them was I host workshops and classes with professors and kids, and I work with Bates College a lot. And so when we were doing this program one day, I said, all right, I have homework for you guys. I said, you know, I have 2 questions. I want you to answer them, and then I also want your parents to answer them. The question is, when I say the word farmer, what are some words that come to mind? And then the second question I had for them, the students themselves, is I said, I want you to go to your parents, and I said, I want you to sincerely ask them, say, Mom and Dad, I'm thinking about farming as a career option. What are your thoughts? So many of the answers that came back with question 1 from both kids and parents were, dirty, hard work, you're not going to, job security, all those kind of things.
The word that came to my mind was poverty.
Poverty. It was in there. And it was the same for the parents, very similar. With, and some of them were like, a great opportunity for you to try, but not long term. Half the kids, and we're talking, this particular group was 30 kids, half the kids did not feel comfortable asking their parents about what their, mom and dad, even though it's just like hypothetical. Mom and dad, I'm thinking about farming as a career option. What are your thoughts? Didn't dare ask it. Those that did, the answers that came back were, some of the parents said, if that's truly what you want to do, then we cannot we cannot continue to support that.
I mean, it's expensive to go to school at Bates for
That's
farming
correct.
when I feel like you could go work on a farm and
That's
get the
correct.
education.
So
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
since the beginning and even today, I am passionate about changing that lens in people's mind, and that I'm first and foremost a farmer. I cannot do what I'm doing without the farm. And when you think about restaurants, and that's one of the reasons I got the James Beard Award, is that the group realized that one of the things they were not recognizing was the people who provide the ingredients to make these chefs famous.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And so if I can change somebody's lens in terms of so that if their child says, I'm thinking about going to work for Nezinscot Farm, that's awesome. What are you going to do? Well, she's going to have me in the garden some. We're going to do some butchering, making cheese. I am an artist. I'm an artist in so many different fields, and I bring all of those to this farm. And by changing that lens, to change people's minds in terms of if that word farmer is such a word that, deters people or makes them feel like they're not going to amount to anything, then call yourself an artist, because that is what farming is. It's an art.
What is art?
Art is the ability to create something beautiful.
Yes, it's creation.
It's creation.
Yeah.
And so being able to step outside in your garden this time of year and come in with 8 bushels of different things and just being able to sit with people and say, look, what are we going to do?
Yeah. And this, having a vision for a restaurant or for a way to make your community a better place is art, because you're creating that space. You're creating the culture that the change you want to see in the world. Right. I think that is all creation. That can all be an art form for sure.
Right.
Where do you think it went wrong? I mean, this country was built on the back of farmers. Our founding fathers were farmers. This was a nation of farmers, and there was a lot of integrity in that. What changed?
Priorities, cheap food in grocery stores. When you don't have to produce your own food. So many people, the town of Turner had, when Gregg was growing up,
we are in Turner, Maine, for the record.
We are in Turner, Maine.
Yeah.
Had over 30 small dairies that produce milk for Hood and, a couple of other co-ops. There's 2 of us left.
Wow.
And so the whole industry, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of, and it's about price, and what we are doing is unique, and it is, you can't be a single commodity farmer anymore. You've got to diversify. You've got to branch out. You've got to open your doors to the community. But more importantly, you've got to have partners that work well together.
What kind of partners are you talking about?
My husband. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
We get asked this all the time, like, do you ever go on a vacation? And I love, my response is very quick, and it's always been the same. I've said, define vacation. Because we host a lot of people in the summertime who come here who are on vacation. And honestly, I'm wondering, I'm like, are you guys happy? Because it's such a stressful thing for these families to go on vacation.
Right.
And I love telling people, I'm like, look, I have a brook that we walk to that is like quiet.
Is that Nezinscot River?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have all these different places on the farm. I go to church every day. People say, you go to church every day? I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, what church do you go to? I said, go to my barn. My barn is my church. And they like, that's funny, Gloria. I'm like, well, no, think about it. I said, my barn is quiet until I open that door, and then everything just, comes alive. I said, think about like when a priest or a minister comes in, the church is quiet and the minister comes in, and, that feeling of like these people are here to see me. I'm like, that's my church. My farm is my church. My store is my church. But in terms of taking a vacation, we never have. And my kids are, they're not.
Back to like living. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Continue. Well, I was going to say back to where you were saying earlier is like this idea of like not having to choose between work and life,
yeah.
Right? But making your life's work.
Yeah.
And when you do that and you choose to do the things that you started this by doing the things that make you happy.
Yeah.
When you choose to do the things that make you happy and you're showing up to that thing that fills your cup every day, it doesn't matter how much money you're making because you get to choose you have autonomy. You have freedom of time, freedom of relationships, freedom of purpose. The one thing, when you can get 3 freedoms and the one freedom you might be missing, which is freedom of money.
Yeah.
But when you can outweigh those 3, like it's amazing what you can get by with when everything else, all of your other, those 3 other pillars are things that fill your cup. Like you really don't need a ton of money at the end of the day, especially when you're growing food.
Right.
Like you're right. You got your biggest security covered. Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have family? What else do you need? Right. So, but it looks like that freedom of money is starting to I don't want to get too far ahead in the story, but is that something have you had freedom of money, or is this a newer thing with the new bit? Like, I don't know, I guess I'm getting too far ahead. Have you had freedom of money with this choice that you've made for you and your family?
A little bit. It's gotten a little bit better, but the big picture is this is still a farm, and the store can't function without the dairy, and the dairy can't, so we, both sides of the road, we're going to call it, right? The dairy side and the store, we need each other. So that is the one piece of the farm right now that is struggling, and that we're having the hardest time with because we can't find help. People who are interested in showing up at 5:30 in the morning, to milk cows, to do a dirty job, or show up in the afternoon to milk cows, or have experience with helping drive tractors and cropping and all of that. That's a whole different workforce. So labor is an issue on both sides, and that's one of the vulnerabilities of what we're doing here. And thankfully, both Gregg and I are in a place where we're still two of the main workers. And my kids are grown. One of them has come back and is on board, which is awesome. And the others help out in other ways, but one is physically here.
You have 5 kids?
5 kids.
And at one point, they were all working on the farm.
So, yes, my youngest is just graduated from Orono. So he's here for the summer and probably heading off in a year. And then we lost a son, and then we have 3 girls. So 32, 30, and 27.
Okay. So I guess what I want to get into now, like you've kind of painted the picture of your business, your vision, your values. What are the biggest challenges for you to maintain this American dream?
Labor security.
Has it always been the case, or is that a new thing?
It's a new thing.
What were the earlier challenges, or do you think those are still challenges for people starting today, or are those maybe more associated with the time that you started your farm?
I think it's starting today. It's a challenge right now. It's not just here.
So it's getting harder to do what you did today.
Yeah.
And that is labor.
Yeah.
How are you overcoming that challenge?
So a couple weeks ago, and it's funny because you have to be creative. And think outside the box. So one of the ways I've kind of approaching the labor issue across the road, the dairying part, is that in my mind I'm thinking, I need to find that one or two people or a couple that will, commit to milking both morning and night, and looking for that and just struggling because you can't find them. So then I thought, well, look in-house, and so I asked in-house, I'm like, anybody want to learn how to milk? We'll teach you. It's, even if it's just one day a week, one morning a week, one afternoon a week. And so we've been able to actually get people to come in and do that. And then.
So people that you were hiring to work in the cafe.
Yeah. So Aiden, who's my barista 2 days a week, I said, Aiden, don't you want to learn how to milk cows? Because without that, I can't, some of us don't have jobs. So we need both sides of the road. And so when you change, maybe have people think about it, it's like, yeah, I need that milk.
Yeah.
I need that milk for this
connected.
cheese.
Yep.
That's all it takes. So, and then some younger people coming in the store that are regulars that I know, have regular jobs, full-time jobs, but I'm like, you got to know somebody who might be interested in a 3 to 6 shift or 5:30 to 8:30 shift. And so slowly that's trickling in, and that, when you have one strong milker and then an assistant, that's all we need. But when the strong milker also has an opportunity to leave, then you're like, oh God, we're in this position again. So there's a lot of that disruption that, brings me to a halt on a weekly basis.
Is a strong milker technique or grip strength?
It's a technique because it's all machine based, Okay. In the past, I've always I've never had problems finding interns in the summertime to help my goat milking. I have been milking every night for 4 months now.
Wow.
So, but that's, I'm committed to doing that.
How has the business evolved the most since you had this vision to take a more holistic approach and to, go all in? You started with the yarn, then you started doing baked goods, I'm assuming, was the next natural evolution.
Yep.
When did you say like this can be so much more? We can do so much more. So like today, like you're selling meat, you're selling dairy, you're selling goods from your commodities.
Yeah.
Like you have a cafe, you're doing coffee.
Yeah.
It's like this constant evolution.
Yeah.
So like, what was that evolution like, and what was the challenges of those evolutions?
Started in 90, early 90s when, because we had started producing milk commercially again. When we bought the farm, there was nothing here. It was just buildings.
Was there a barn?
The store as it is today is what Gregg grew up milking cows in.
Okay.
And when we bought the farm, it was a workshop in the front end, and we had animals in there in the first few years. And the plan, our vision was if the store idea worked out in the house, our 5-year plan was then to move, gut this thing out and move the store out here, which we did.
So wait, this like the core of the building right here to our left, was that a barn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you lived over this way.
Yeah.
What was over here behind you?
That was added on.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
So where the cafe is today and the store is today was the barn where the animals were originally being housed. Mm-hmm. And what about across the street?
So across the street, so this is when Gregg was growing up. And then also growing up here, they built the barn across the road.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then moved there. And then this building transferred from a animal housing to a workshop for his father.
So what above is where your fibers, that was all just like what, hay?
Just an open hay barn.
Got it.
Yep.
And then your home was where now you're building an extension onto the home.
Yep.
So are you going to move more of your current living situation into like working space, or are you?
No. So our home is being replaced because it's pretty old. And so is an old part of the house. So we're just replacing it.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just hit the switch one day and did all this stuff. It's been a slow, gradual, like, slowly growing from the inside out.
Yep.
What were the challenges associated with this growth and this scale?
Probably not enough hours in a day. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Too much work and not enough time to do it all.
Right.
What about profitability? How have you become more profitable over time?
Yep. Each department.
So what was the biggest thing? And again, I don't think it's all about money, but I think that it's weird. I think we look at profit as dirty. Like it's not about money. It's dirty. Like we're here for like the why, the purpose. But
it has to be profitable in order for you to continue doing
to
that,
make
right?
your vision come into fruition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what have you learned about squeezing more juice out of the fruit?
I want to say, we downsized a little bit, or instead of adding, let's take the cafe as an example, instead of offering like 40 different items, really coming down to like, okay, what can we
more with less?
Yeah.
So how did you land on what you're doing today? How did you know what to shed?
Really looked at what was making us money, right? And or what took the most. And a lot of that is, when I looked at my time available, my husband and now my daughter will tell you, it's like, Mom, no one can do what you're doing. I can't even understand how you do what you do.
And that's just the amount of output?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if I'm going to add something new, I've got to look at how it might fit into my already existing schedule. So if it's a bakery product, instead of one of the things I've been really successful in is looking at, our bagels, for instance, which you just had.
So good.
Looking at that dough and being able to manipulate it a little bit more to create 2 or 3 other
Lady,
Totally
your
different.
sourdough, it keeps me coming back. It's the sourdough that I started getting hooked on this place for. So,
Yeah.
like, are you using a similar, like, base?
Yeah.
It's for, like, your bagel and your sourdough? Is that
Yeah.
where you're going with this?
Yeah. So, and same with the creamery. So you take one batch of cheese and then being able to create 4 different products with it, without having to do 4 different batches of,
So units of
in a
work.
vat.
So if you're going to do a certain unit of work, what other work can I spin out of this unit?
That's
of
right.
work? Okay.
Yeah.
So the 2 big things is focus on what you do. Watch the cameras, buddy. Say, focus on what you are good at, what's getting like the most ROI.
Yep.
And then figuring out how to spin more out of what you're already doing.
Right.
So narrow the focus and
Yep.
then go further with the units of work you're already producing.
Right. And my stations, how I've created all of these little departments, they're all in walking distance. So my creamery is literally the next wall over. My bakery is on the other wall, and then the store and cafe. So I can have stuff going in all 3 places, and I'm just, I'm on a stopwatch.
Right. Well, yeah.
Everything's on a timer, and as long as nothing breaks down or goes awry, then all should, at the end of the day, come together.
You're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yes.
Closed Monday, Tuesday.
Yes.
Were you always closed Monday, Tuesday?
No, we've always been open 7 days a week.
Okay.
And then when I started having labor issues, which pulled me in the store
When
more.
was this?
I want to say like 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And so at that point, I realized I wasn't getting the time that I needed for creamery, for instance, to get those products done. And then Tuesdays. So I like telling people I have, my 2 days off. Monday's my cheese day and Tuesday's my farm day. Those are my days that, I get things done that I haven't been able to get done on the farm, small animal wise or whatever.
Got it. So, I mean, one thing we saw post-pandemic is that restaurants would narrow their hours of operation.
Yeah.
To cut back on their labor costs and to really only be open when they're getting the most out of their effort, right?
Yeah.
Like not paying for people to be working the shop when nobody was coming in the doors.
Yeah.
Was that part of it too? Were you thinking like, well, we don't have to why have somebody on staff if nobody's coming in on Monday and Tuesday? Why not just stay open during our peak hours? Was that part of it?
Yeah.
Okay. What about like one thing I'm interested in, somebody who, if somebody's listening to this and it's their dream to have a farm, to grow their animals.
Yep.
And I think of like Melissa Kelly with Primo,
Yep.
right? Like she's doing something very similar. She's got a fine dining restaurant.
Yep.
But it's interesting. I'm curious about like the economics of that, because with a restaurant, you have your prime costs, your cost of goods, your labor and all this stuff. How does that work with you when most of your goods are coming from your property? Do you have better margins, or does the labor offset that? The
labor offsets that a little bit. But yeah, I eliminate that middleman.
Right.
So yeah.
So, I mean, I guess if we want to recreate what you've created
Yep.
and have success with it,
Yep.
what are the things that you've figured out the hard way that if you just wish you knew these things that you had to learn over time?
Yep.
Like what are those hacks, those life beyond what you've already shared with us? You said doing more with less, focusing on what you're really good at, units of work, spinning more out of what you're already doing. Mm-hmm. What else in terms of how to make it profitable? Do you mind sharing your percent profit? Is that something that you're willing to talk about?
No, I don't. Since the award, our profit increase has been about 35%.
35% increase in profit.
Yep.
That's awesome.
In 3 categories. Yep.
In what are those 3 categories?
Dairy. So when I say dairy, our cheese, our cafe, and bakery.
So you're not making 35% profit, but you've increased your profit.
I've increased increased by 35%.
So, it's weird because I kind of beat up on the James Beard Foundation sometimes, if I'm being completely honest. I have to also, in that same breath, say that they do a lot of good for people. They find people like you, and they bring a lot of business for small restaurant owners. I push back on them sometimes because I feel like a lot of the businesses that they promote, the business models of fine dining, are so hard to make profitable that I feel like everybody's after. It's the award culture that has come up in our industry where everyone's trying to get an award. And I think the level, the quality of food has risen across the boards, generally speaking, where there's more James Beard quality restaurants than ever before. And they only have the same amount of awards that go out every year. So unless you're getting that award, you can't drive the business to your restaurant to sustain the work that's required to get the award.
Yeah.
See where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And those restaurants only serve like the 1% of people, the top 1% of people who can afford to go eat out like that.
Right.
So we're like kind of like keeping this broken business model going when we don't have enough people to sustain it and everyone's out to try to get the awards. That's what I feel. Where do you fall on that?
When this award came to me, I'm not doing this to try to create an award coming to us. So when it came to us, I called my daughter Samantha, who does our books for us, and I said, Samantha, I just got this phone call from so-and-so saying we've just won this award from James Beard. Now, I've always heard about it.
Yeah.
And she says, Mom, she says, that's huge. I'm like, what? She says, you need to be ready for this.
It's gonna get busy. Yeah.
So I think where you're going is this the direction that I would promote or encourage or have people think about in terms of like if they're thinking about doing something like this, is to go look for that award? Probably not.
Right. And I think that most of the people who get the awards aren't the people who are looking for the awards.
Yeah.
And if you go out seeking the awards, then you're really in it for your ego, and that's not why you do this work.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I love it when I hear stories like this, where somebody who's been doing this for now going on, 37 years.
Yeah.
You did it for the right reasons. And I think those are the people who should be rewarded.
Right.
I just hate to see everybody put their self-worth on, do I have an award?
Right.
And I think that award culture is what we need to get away from.
Right.
And I don't necessarily blame the James Beard Foundation or the Michelin Stars, but I do think that it's this egocentric, award-driven culture, and it's all marketing.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just all based off marketing. And I think it kind of sucks the soul out of the industry. That's my critique.
Yeah.
So I think it's more an issue with the industry putting value on that but at the same time, increase all of your profit by 35%.
Yeah.
Like that's another reason to want to get one of these awards. And is it right that these entities have that much influence over businesses? You've been here this entire time.
Right. And so many people have come here since, who have been going by the farm.
Right.
Or live down there, like, we never knew you had this here. I'm like,
to think that an award can make or break a business.
Right. Right.
That's my pushback.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't think, I think we would have continued in the direction and continued to be successful. And it did force that profitability up a little bit more. And so it kind of happened at a good time because the dairy, industry also is kind of going through this roller coaster.
Right.
So it helped buffer that. And so if I were to offer suggestions to somebody coming on, I would say the same thing is start small and just grow from profits, but also grow based on what you're capable of doing or interested in doing.
Yeah, I was going to say
that includes your family and your values and all of that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So where are you today, in terms of like what, you're now in your second year after getting the award.
Yep.
Have you seen a dip after that first year?
No.
That's good.
Yeah.
So do you think that you're retaining the customers? Like,
Yeah.
I know you're using Revel.
Yeah.
So with Revel, are you able to get that data, that customer data?
Yeah.
Do you know like who's coming in the most, who's spending the most money with you?
Yep. Yep. And what's nice about our spot is that, you know, the traffic is constantly changing. So we definitely get, you know, that summer
That's where I
traffic.
come.
July and August is huge. And then we're coming into the foliage season, and that's also huge, especially, you know, Thursday on. What I like about this award has done is it's really opened up people's mind outside the food realm. It really has opened up that lens to farming and what we need to do, what this farm has done, and that they're still farming. There's still a functioning farm. There's still family working it. You know, I am passionate about people knowing where their food's coming from.
Well, you know, I think there's hope in farming, in sourcing from farms, because I think, especially organic farms, regenerative farming techniques, people are selfish. They do what's right for them. They want more for less, right? But I think now that more and more information is flowing more freely and people are starting to put more value on being healthy, and when you get those health nuts that are really starting to figure out where we collectively as society are starting to figure out that if I want to feel good, it all starts with what I put in my body.
Right.
And I can eat fruits and vegetables, and I could also eat fruits and vegetables that are grown holistically with good farming practices and less chemicals and all this, and organic this, organic that. The cleaner the food I'm putting into my body, the better I feel, the healthier I am, the lower risk I am for cancer, and and it's all connected. And I think that now that like we've had 50, 60, 70 years of going in this industrialized, centralized food system, and we are now starting to realize that we're an unhealthy society that can't eat bread, that's like, you know, can't eat dairy, and like there's all like we're like seeing the repercussions of our decisions over the time. We're starting to realize we have to self-correct. Right. And I think that the answer is so obvious, back to local small farms, eating as close to what food should be. Right. And I think that there's hope in that direction as long as we start to educate people on what's going through your mind. As I'm saying this, I'm talking too much. What's going through my mind is the increased young families that are coming here. And like you said, the food is huge, is a big thing. And teaching people, you know, when you look at a price, you know, it's more expensive, but when you can encourage them or convince them that they don't have to eat but a third of it to get the same sustenance, then all of a sudden that $8 that can feed a family of 6 doesn't look so expensive, you know. But honestly, we get so many people come here with families just to be on the farm. We have a lot of older people who come here because they grew up on a farm and they miss it. So they sit outside with a cup of coffee. And I hope that we can always be that place for those people, because it is a dying way of life, but it doesn't have to be. I'm sure since 1987 you've seen a shift going away from it. Mm-hmm. Are you beginning to see the tide coming back in?
There was that shift coming back in about 10 years ago. There were a huge shift of young adults coming in and acquiring land, working with, you know, organizations like Maine Farmland Trust, and organizations like that to start their farms. And again, the key is, you know, you got to be a strong couple with the same values. 2, it can't be a single commodity farm. You've got to diversify. You've got to come to the farm with skills and ideas, and you've got to have some marketing skills, you know.
What's interesting about that's opposite from the restaurant industry that I've learned. If you want to be a profitable restaurant, you have to put all of your energy into doing one thing. This isn't the only model, but it's a pattern I've seen where you're seeing restaurants put all their energy into doing one thing really well. Like instead of trying to be everything to everybody, they're like, we're going to be the best pizza in town, and we're only going to do pizza. Look at Holy Donut. We're only going to do potato, donuts or potato batter donuts or whatever. And we're going to do just burgers. We're going to be a burger only concept. And what you can do is you don't have to become dependent on a chef that has all these talents. You can train somebody off the street to make a burger really well.
Yeah.
But you're saying that that's different for the farm.
It is different for the farm, because of the diversity of products we have, and the diversity of space.
So part of the mission here at Restaurant Unstoppable, really the mission is to offer perspective to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry through the stories, knowledge, values, and perspectives of people like you, leaders and communities across the country. One thing I really want to be better about going forward is democratizing that message from people. Like what's the definition of success, right? And for me, I what I'm hearing from you is your definition of success is freedom to do what you love.
Being happy.
And to be happy, right? And to make a living doing it, but really just to be able to do what you want to do. That's the core of it. Do you think we're moving in a direction as a society where it's getting harder and harder to have liberties and freedoms to do what you want because it's harder and harder to actually be successful doing it?
There are definitely, rules and regulations that apply to that can, especially in the food industry and when you're growing your own stuff. I don't know if it's harder or getting harder.
You mentioned earlier that there was a wave of younger people like 10 years ago that came in.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you finished that. Is that stopping?
It is.
Why do you think that's the case?
Because they're realizing how hard it is.
Has it always been that hard, or are people just not willing to work as hard as people used to?
I think they want the vacations, the extracurricular stuff that all of their peers are having. And so if you're in a community where you don't have that support, and, again, I go back to Gregg and I being unique. We are our own best friends, and we don't require a lot outside of ourselves. We have a lot of people who adore us, and we adore a lot of people, but we don't feel like we have to have dinner with them or go out with them or go to the movies or go on vacation or do those kind of things. So I think it's harder for younger couples to initially, it's great, but then at the end of the day, they're not feeling fulfilled.
Why do you think that they have this sense of hollowness, of unfulfilled? Like, where is that coming from? Like, I need to be able to go on vacation. I need to be able to go out to the movie. I need to be able to go do this.
It's the ideals that are set in society, so it goes back to when I asked the question, like when I say the word farmer, what are some keywords that come to mind?
Hard work, dirty, not a lot of money, long hours.
And so at the end of the day, if they look at that list and you're like, oh, I'm dirty, I don't feel like taking a shower. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. It's all negative. Mm-hmm. Can we find some positive words for that?
Right.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
You know, it's funny. I brought this book in today because I had a feeling that it was gonna come up in conversation. Have you heard of this book?
I have not.
Power and Progress. It's written by Daron Acemoglu. I'm not sure. How would you say his name? Do you see it? Acemoglu. Yeah,
maybe?
Sorry, Daron. And Simon Johnson. And the whole premise of this book is how basically as technology progresses, it doesn't necessarily serve everybody.
Right.
So basically, it's the people at the top that control the technology that are the beneficiaries of technology. And looking at farming over the past 100 years, as we've developed combines and we've centralized the food system, and like who's truly benefiting from these mass advantages in technology relative to farming? It's the big conglomerate companies that bought up all the farms, and they're pumping poison into the humanity and society. And like I just think that there's this, we're being fed, and part of this, the message in this book too, is that the people who have the technology control the narrative because they have the resources, the power to control the agenda and the messaging around what people need and want, i.e. marketing, messaging, consumerism. And there's like the sickness in society right now where everybody's saying like, I need to keep up with the Joneses and I need all these things to be happy. But what did you say earlier today when people ask you about coming, or they're here on vacation, you ask them if they're happy because they seem so stressed out.
Right.
What is the narrative that needs to be told? Is there some truth to the fact that if you do, part of my language, hard fucking work, that there's reward in that and you feel good, and when you can provide holistic, healthy food to your community that makes them healthy, and you get seen for that value, you get seen for bringing the community together, that there's something like that, there's dignity in that, and it feels good to be seen and to be valued by your community, and maybe that's what matters.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been quiet over the past month. I drove across the country. I listened to this book on audio driving across the country, and I was torn. I'm like, what is the message of Restaurant Unstoppable? Like, is it to get bigger and to create more opportunity for people? I think that's part of it, because as you grow, as you scale, you do create opportunity for others.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like, what are we really, what's the most important thing? I think it's, to your point, freedom.
Yeah.
To do what you love.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to come here and share your story today is because I think we need to redefine what success is.
Yep.
You know, so what goes through your mind on that rant and the profanity I just dropped on you?
What reminds me when you ask the question, what is success? It reminds me of a group I had here, again, a different collegiate class, an economies class. I was catering a meal for them, and the professor asked if I would step in and answer a few questions. I said, sure. And so he said, you know, you've got quite a diversity of things going on here. It's my economics class. He says, so when you're building a business like this, and he says, how do you determine like what stays or what doesn't stay? Or, you know, and I said, it all depends on if it makes me happy. And he looks at me and says, you know, that makes no sense. And I said, it does make sense. And I said, nobody's been able to put a value on happiness yet. And I said, I need you to figure that out. I said, because the reality is, I said, you know, I said, I have 2 donkeys that cost me nothing but money. I said, but Brady and Little Bear, you know, they come to me when I call them, they make me happy.
They got personality.
And I said, and happiness has a value. Yeah. And I said, I just don't know what that value is. But when you go out in life, and I was talking to this kid, I said, you know, when you go to get a job, just remember that, you know, your salary may be this, but if you're not happy at doing that, then that's going to cost you.
Right.
in healthcare,
Right.
in, all these things. I said, so I just posed the question to him. I said, there's got to be a value on that. And we need to figure that out and put that in a formula.
Well, it's hard because it's hard to measure happiness, right?
Right.
But at the same time, what they have figured out is that no matter how much money you have, it can't buy happiness.
It can't buy happiness.
And we know, if you look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the most basic needs are your most physiological needs: food, shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Then beyond that, you need to feel like you're secure. Then
Right.
beyond that, you need to feel like you're being seen and valued. Then beyond that, you need to feel like you're growing as a person. And then beyond that, you need to feel like you've achieved self-actualization. This is my purpose in life. And if you can do those things, you have everything you need in those freedoms.
Right.
It doesn't cost that much money
Right.
to achieve those things. But I think consumerism tells us that we need to have more to these material things that might give us a hit of dopamine in that moment. We might feel like we've achieved it, but that new car you're driving to work is only new for a week. And then it's just another way to get to the job you hate.
Right.
So it's just like, what is the message? So
Right.
why do you how do we shift the message? Like, what is your vision? Do you have a vision for the future? I mean, I know purpose is a big part of what you're trying to do here, is to educate the community.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that vision you have for your community? And like, how do we get that out?
So, through my classroom, right? And so last year, we look at cutting costs, right? And so I sat down with my daughter and said, we're trying to recreate something. Let's take the barista as the coffee shop cafe part. I said, I'm trying to compete and be just like Starbucks or whatever. They have this many drinks and this, and then so many milk alternatives. And I'm like, I'm not about it. That's not what we are. She says, well, you're going to lose customers because so many people are lactose intolerant. We'll start with the milk. So many people are lactose intolerant and this and that. And I'm like, I don't care. It's still not what we're about. And I said, raw milk is totally different. If you're lactose intolerant, you can actually tolerate raw milk because it still has all of its enzymes and all that stuff. And I said, and if they don't want milk, they don't want milk. If we lose a customer, so what? Well, guess what? Every person I've said, no, we only do milk, our farm milk. Oh, okay, I'll do that. So what does that tell me? That tells me that people have been lying to us, that you just want oat milk because it's the latest cool thing, or almond milk. And
Mono farming, not good for the environment, for the record. And that's one thing that kicks my, like, whenever I hear people are like, oh, like, I'm vegetarian, like, I'm gonna like only eat I like these crops like almonds and
Right.
soy or like whatever, like that farming.
Right.
It's like saying, you know what, I want to be better for the environment. I'm not gonna eat meat.
Right.
It's like saying I'm gonna only eat vegetable. I'm gonna go from Marlboro Reds to Marlboro Lights. They're both horrible.
Right.
Right. But there's another solution, which is like what you're doing and what other small farms are doing across the country, where they're doing holistic regenerative farming. I don't know if you guys get into regenerative farming and things like that, but the thing is that food is expensive, right? But we spend, I think it was like this, there's a book out there called The Town That Food Saved, and it's based off of a town in Vermont. And there's a number in that book. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I'm not going to be off by much. But like 22% of the average household in like 1950 or 1940, 20% of the average household income went to food. Today, it's like 9%. So the question is it more expensive, or is it actually back to what it used to be? And do we need to prioritize putting good food into our body? Because so much of our income is now going towards big homes, subscription services. Like how many, like there's more media that any one person can consume in their life, and they're spending all this money to have like all these streaming services, new pairs of jeans. How many different pairs of Spanx do you need?
Right.
Like, where is your money going?
Right.
You feel like shit? Put better things into your body.
Right.
So I think the answer is so glaringly obvious.
Right.
I don't mean to go on all these rants today. I'm sorry.
So I continue to want to, so prior to you coming here today, we hosted a group of 38 kids. So that have probably never worked on a farm, but they're out there, and there are 4 staff that I've committed to them. Did I make money? Absolutely not. But I've, again, changed the vision. And I want to tell you a quick story. Going back to that base group, one of the things that happened at that same group was a third of the kids were vegetarians. And part of this program, this 5-week program that I did with them, was the end result was we ended with a farm-to-table dinner that the kids, they created the meals, we harvested the food, and it included slaughtering a lamb and a turkey for the meal. And the young lady, so when it came the time to put an animal down, there were four girls who just started crying, just like, I can't, we shouldn't be made to do this. And I said to him, look, I'm not going to make you do this. I said, the animal will have been put down prior to you coming around. I said, but I need you to see the process, because I need to change that vision in your mind of why you're a vegetarian. I said, because I can imagine you're a vegetarian or vegan because 90% of you have seen horrific, abusive things on how animals are slaughtered.
Yeah, the worst examples of how that's done.
Right. And I said, I need to change that vision that you have. Because around here, we smudge, we thank it for its life, and
they have one bad day.
They have one bad day.
And it's not even a bad day. They don't know what's coming.
Right. So we did that process, and all of a sudden it became while I was, doing the process, I could feel the kids coming, like, all of a sudden it's science. They can see organs and all of that. And I said, and I'm not even going to make you eat the meat. So afterwards, she thanked me because it was a beautiful experience. But the best part was at her graduation, she brought her parents here, and her dad was the director of NCIS. And I was back at the grill, and he said, is there a lady here by the name of Gloria? And I said, yes, that's me. He goes, well, when you have a moment, I'd like to see you outside. I said, I'll be right there. So I went out, and he was a lovely man. He says, I just want to tell you that thanks to you, he says, my daughter won't let me eat meat unless I know the farmer that grew it. And I said, that is awesome.
Awesome.
I said, thank you so much, Rosie. And she's like, you're welcome.
Well, and you have these privileged people, that directors at NCSI, I'm sure he has the budget to support some local farms.
Yes,
but we just get conditioned.
That's right.
To go to the grocery store and to get this meat that we have no idea where it came from.
Yeah.
But if we know where the meat's coming from, and we can keep our money local and we can support our local farmers.
Right.
And I got to say, I've been really impressed by Maine. In the past couple of years coming here, there is a farm in Livermore. It's a Amish farm. Are you familiar with it?
Yep.
That parking lot's packed.
Yep.
With people buying their food from local farms. Not far from there in Canton, there's a beef farm where they do veal, and you literally roll up, you see the baby cows chained right there, and they're selling the meat right next to it. And I think there's just something to be said about the transparency of it.
Yep.
And maybe that T-bone cost me $40, but I can see where it was grown, and I can see the farmer who's selling it to me.
Right.
And I think that in that moment, we're seeing these farmers, we're valuing these farmers, and there's purpose in that. There's meaning in that. And I think that's what's been missing, and why people are so depressed, and they go to their jobs and they work in their Fortune 500 companies where they're a part of this team and they do the thing, and there's no reward to it.
Right.
We're just making rich people richer, and I think really what it comes down to is we have to be conscious about where we're choosing to put our money, and where we're, is it to buy new fancy things that marketing is telling us we need, or do we need to support our communities?
Right.
So, I mean, one thing I want to be conscious about going forward with this podcast is to take a more democratic approach to the people I'm making an example of, to really say what is success.
Right.
And to create a paradigm shift and to reset values. I think I've been quiet lately because I kind of, after reading this book and this idea of like these entities are controlling the narrative, I don't know. I think that we need to kind of broaden the stage, or to at least get different perspectives on the stage. Yeah.
And when it comes to, you got a group controlling everybody, right? So we'll take the organic industry. When you choose to sell commodities outside, it's a hard thing to do, because it's not, I'm producing this great product and I should be paid accordingly. When you look at a living wage, there's so many middlemen that need that same amount of money that the farmers end up being pushed down. But I don't think a lot of people understand, in the last 10 years, for instance, with the organic dairy industry alone, we've got milk coming in across the country, flooding the New England, the Northeast market. You've got buyers are saying, well, if you want to have a contract with us, then you've got to compete with this price coming across the country, which is $5 less a hundredweight. You get paid by the 100 pounds of milk. And so, the farmers are expected to figure out how to make that happen. And so it's no wonder we're having a hard time convincing the next generation to want to do that, because it's a dying trade if you're going to do just one commodity.
Yeah. So anything we haven't discussed today that you think you are uniquely positioned to discuss, or a message you want to get out before we start to wrap up? Something just came into my mind too, so I have another one lined up for you after you reflect on that question.
I don't think so.
Yeah. The question that popped into my mind, do you lean into agritourism? Do you leverage agritourism?
No.
Do you do events, and do you have like gatherings where there's events that you bring people together to, I don't know. I know that you do have classes here, right?
We do. We have a couple of retreats, fiber related, in the wintertime, where we bring people in. Agritourism, our farm is always open. So, but do I do events specifically to draw them in? Not really, because again, it takes away from my time doing the things that are more important, for the big picture. We're not a petting zoo, and I am very clear of making sure people know that, but that's also a mindset that so many people are. It's like, can I go feed your animals, or can I, whatever. And I'm like, well, would it be okay for me to give your child a bag of M&Ms? No. Animals eat specific time of day. And I hate to see that so many farms have had to do that to become these entertainment centers.
Right. It's to draw the people in to sell the goods.
Right.
Yeah. But I just want to say thank you for being a place I love to come. And it's been so much fun to see the evolution over the past 7 years I've been coming. Yep. And as much as happy as I am for you that in the past 2 years you've seen an increase of 35%, I kind of liked it before when there was plenty of parking and I didn't have to wait in line.
But today was only, usually there's plenty of parking. It's just that we had those that school group here, those extra cars.
No, but seriously, in all honesty, I'm super excited for you, and it just warms my heart to see people who do honest, hard work benefiting and, getting what they deserve, And I hope that there's a shift happening right now where more and more people make the conscious decision to support their farms. And on that note of supporting the farm, you are here in Maine, Turner, Maine. You're about 45 minutes from
We're 10
Portland?
miles from Auburn.
Lewiston.
Yeah, an hour from Portland.
Yep.
An hour north. Right off Route 4, 1 mile.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you supply restaurants with goods and commodities?
No.
Is that something you'd be willing to do? Selling it to, what about your milk to?
If our dairy situation changes so that we're not selling wholesale, then I would have absolutely the opportunity to, if I had secure help and one of my kids came on board to do just that, we absolutely could consider doing that. But the reality is restaurants are no different. They're a buyer. They've got a certain budget, and if they can get something for $3, why pay $6? Or,
right.
That's what it comes down to.
I think part of the answer to answer that question, why pay
I know
$6?
why they should, but
because there's a story behind it.
Yeah, that
and
too.
when you have that story, I feel like it hits
Yeah.
harder, and I think there are some restaurants that go out of their way to spend more money on ingredients
Yep.
because it's the best.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's a weird world we live in right now, but
It is, but hopefully, the farm is a place that, or farms continue to survive.
yeah.
And that I think there is a shift. There is a shift in communities. There is a shift in consumerism.
Yeah.
So-
Sorry, did I cut you short?
Nope.
Anything that you want to get out in terms of drawing awareness onto something you might have coming up, or use this opportunity to promote yourself, an event you have, or anything like that to get the word out before we say goodbye?
We still have a lot of growth going on at our sister farm. Starting next month, we're opening a farmer's market there.
Where is this?
So that's on right off of Route 219 on North River Road in North Turner. It's also home to the Maine Outdoor Wellness Center, which is a nonprofit that was formed for our son Roy Varney. So there's a big new building up there that we are planning on hosting a farmer's market for fall and winter. And then that brings us into the winter season where snowshoeing and Nordic skiing and all of that fun winter activity stuff takes place. And
So this road that is just west of us that goes north, that's Route 4.
that's Route 4.
219, is that split off?
It splits off up in North Turner, so you can take...
Is that where that little farm is? Or not the farm, the convenience store where it goes, there's a lake, it goes to the left?
Canton heads to the left.
That's 108.
That's 108. So you're down here a bit.
Okay, gotcha. I know what you're talking about now.
So...
I want to go to this market. That's why.
So, yeah.
That was for me to know.
Yeah. So that's going to start, it'll be the third Wednesday of every month starting October 20th. It'll be from 12 to 3. So it'll be an extension from the Turner Farmers Market that took place down in the village on this Turner Center this summer. So many of the vendors will be coming there. It's where all my fiber animals live and a bunch of our hay fields and stuff like that. But it's off the beaten path. It's quiet and, great place to bring family and spend a day, whatever.
Don't feed the animals.
Yeah.
The last question I like to ask all my guests, and I really want this to be my North Star.
Yeah.
I don't think I should be the one who decides who should be made an example of. So who do you respect and admire in the industry? Somebody who's doing good work, who, from what you can tell, is also profitable and making money and is willing to share what they've learned, like you've shared with us today. Is there anybody that comes to mind that you'd like to call out or put on my radar that I should get on the show?
In terms of personal inspiration, honestly, I have to say my husband. There's quite a few years between us.
I'm assuming he's older because you would have really had to rob the cradle at 21 years old.
We are 13 years apart.
Okay.
And it's been nice because when I say get a good partner, being able to throw ideas at each other, but he's been just the most supportive person and trusting in the direction I moved his farm. This is his family, third generation family farm.
Was it Nezinscot's farm before too?
Yeah, it was called
Okay.
Nezinscot. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm saying it wrong. I realize
Yeah.
Nezinscot.
But,
Thank you.
You know, he loves telling people when he married Gloria, the only thing here was we had some cows, and now there's donkeys and sheep and goats and ducks and dogs and cats, and you know the list goes on. And
None of which are ever in the kitchen.
never in the kitchen. So he's, you know,
Yeah.
he's the one I look up to.
Gregg, look out.
most.
I'd love to get you on the show. Maybe we let a year go by and we
Yeah.
spread out the Nezinscot interviews. But how can we connect with you if we're inspired by your story? If maybe we want to reach out to you, connect with you, support some way, website, email, anything like that?
Website, you know, Nezinscotfarm.com.
And that's Nezinscot. It's a tough one to
Yep.
spell.
Yep.
Your social handles, anything like that you want to drop on us?
So that's my daughter's stuff.
Pretty sure it's, I'll look it up real quick. I'm pretty sure it's Nezinscot Farm is the handle as well,
Yeah.
but we'll
Yeah.
verify that.
If you click Nezinscot, it'll bring you. And then there's the Maine Outdoor Wellness Center. You know, click on that.
Personal email, anything like that you want to drop?
Gloria at Nezinscotfarm.com.
Again, and that's Nezinscot Farm. Thank you so much, Gloria,
Welcome.
for taking the time to share your story, your knowledge, your values, your perspective. This is where I say there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Cheers.